Good evening, everybody. It is Brian Rundle from Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. It is just me tonight. Lana is out with friends and having a good time, and I am sitting here, and I figure I'd get on and riff with everybody about what is happening in our country and what will be happening in the next few weeks. We have, Jesus, what do we have? 25 days until we elect a new president of the United States of America. And I know a lot of people are anxious. Some people are confident. Some people are not, depending on who you're voting for. Actually, doesn't matter who you're voting for. There are a lot of people who are absolutely certain that their candidate is going to win. And there are people who are certain that their candidate is going to lose. I have been finding more and more lately that the people who are voting for Kamala Harris are feeling more anxious now than they have. And some people feel like she may not win. And I'm also feeling that the Trump people are extremely confident that he is going to win and that there is no chance Kamala Harris has to be the next president of the United States. And I'm going to get into that towards the end of the show. But I've got a lot of things that I want to touch on right now. And the very first thing I'm going to touch on before we get to anything, and I don't care if anybody's interested or not, but I have to say this as a diehard New York Mets fan, I cannot tell you how excited I am right now. It is easing. No, it's actually adding to my anxiety because we are 4 games away from the World Series. Nobody gave the New York Mets a chance to start the season. Once the season started, the Mets were so horribly bad that almost every Met fan, including myself, who watches pretty much every game, I gave up. I had to. I just thought the season was over. And now we are 4 games away from the World Series. I'm glad, as always, that I stick with my teams. And it's a very exciting but anxious time for me. So if we have any Mets fans out there, I'd like to hear from you on how you're feeling. But anyway, I understand anybody that's tuning into the show doesn't maybe not give a shit about baseball. They are caring about what's happening in this country, what's going on, and what is going to happen in the next 4 weeks. But right now, I want to talk about what has happened in the last week or so. And in the last week or so, we have had some devastating hurricanes blow through the southeastern part of the country. And if you've never experienced a hurricane, and I live in the state of Florida, so I've experienced them, but luckily not in an area that is hit by them in the areas that they are hit in. But I understand the dangers of these hurricanes. I understand the damage that they can do, not just to property, but to people's overall lives and way of being. In fact, they take lives and they are very, very, very serious. And, I'm again lucky to be in a part of the state of Florida where we're certainly going to get some debris. We're going to get wind. We're going to get rains, sometimes heavy, sometimes light. Very lucky for me, Milton passed through and we got light rain and about 20 mile per hour winds. Did not lose any power, luckily, but during Helene, we did lose power for about 16 hours. Winds got up to about 40 miles an hour. So, and this is dead in the middle of the night, too. I mean, it is midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 a.m., and hearing these winds howling and seeing everything outside blowing, it's scary, even at 40 miles an hour. But imagine 80, 100 miles an hour. It's dangerous stuff. And that's why people in the Tampa Bay area of Florida were asked to evacuate. It was a mandatory evacuation to get out of there. The mayor of Tampa even said, if you stay, you will die because this hurricane is dangerous and it is nasty. In fact, if you watched any of the news where the Tampa Bay Rays play, their stadium, the entire roof was blown off of their stadium. And that stadium's been up since I want to say 1990, 89, 1990. So it has sustained many hurricanes and many heavy winds. But this time, Milton came through and blew the roof literally right off the place. But, you know, I'm bringing this up too because now things as serious as hurricanes have entered into our politics, and it is a political thing now. So, not just something as serious as COVID, we went through COVID, that had to be political. We're starting to get to a point in this country where there's nothing that could happen that does not have some sort of political element to it that'll just make you throw your hands up and go, I don't know what we're doing anymore. We are absolutely, completely lost as a society. And in fact, just over the last week, you probably have heard um, Donald Trump and a lot of the people on the right give out and disinformation about FEMA, and that FEMA was out of money, that the government was doing nothing in Florida, in Georgia, and in North Carolina to help the people there, and they're just letting them suffer. And a big reason for that is because the money that was supposed to go to them went to Ukraine instead. And that is just so incredibly dangerous and so incredibly awful that if you have the capacity during a time where people truly need help to say this as somebody that wants to be president of the United States, if you say it and you work just at a convenience store and you say it, that makes you a horrible person. But if you're a person that is looking to be the president of the United States, you're obviously saying this to gain some sort of political points, but what you're saying has zero truth to it. In fact, you could just listen to all of the governors in each one of these states and said, yeah, I heard from President Biden. He said he'll give us everything that we asked for. In fact, what Biden did in pretty much all of these cases is that he set it up prior to the hurricane coming. So when they were asking for relief and asking for help, they got it instantly. People were getting $750 into their accounts instantly. And that's some more disinformation. Oh, here's $750. Good luck. That's not how it works. They initially gave them $750 instantly so they can get things for their children, so they can get things to buy and to be able to make it for a period of time until they were able to get more aid and more help. But the fact that we have leaders out there, congressional people out there telling lies about what is happening with this hurricane and people actually believing it makes what is happening in this country absolutely disgusting. And the fact that you could even consider voting for anybody that would do that, to me, is immoral and it is disgusting. And somebody please explain to me everything I just said, how you justify that. How do you justify what Donald Trump and what JD Vance and what Marjorie Taylor Greene and what all these whack jobs are saying about a hurricane where people desperately need help? I have seen it personally in this state where there has been horrific damage. I grew up in the Daytona Beach area, and I've seen Daytona Beach. I still have friends, best friends, and family that live there, and damage has been done that has been so awful that I mean, I remember when a hurricane came, I was 2 years ago in Daytona Beach, and it was months later. And I went there to visit, walking up and down the beach, and the damage that happened from that hurricane was still there. And it was bad. And again, where we have these leaders out here saying that is just absolutely disgusting. Recently, there have been some really outrageous talk about, forget about FEMA, because where that is really dangerous is when you're telling people that FEMA has no money for you. Then you have these people who are on the Trump side and they believe it. So they go, well, we believe it. I heard President Trump tell me that FEMA's out of money and they gave it to Ukraine and they gave it to Lebanon. So, I guess we're screwed. And, this damn Kamala Harris and Joe Biden need to be put in jail for their discretions. And on top of that, I guess I'm not even going to contact FEMA because they're out of money. That's what I've been told. I mean, how consciously you could do that, to me, again, is disgusting. If somebody can explain to me how there's a disagreement with what I'm saying, love to hear it. Love to hear what you have to say. But there have been a few people that I've just seen recently. One, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an actual lawmaker. I got to share this. I mean, these are people who are talking about the hurricane. I want to make sure this is the right one. Okay. So here's Marjorie Taylor Greene recently. Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. So Marjorie Taylor Greene wants you to think that speculation as to they were, but she also said they had space lasers and they were Jewish and they were causing forest fires. I don't know if she's talking about Jewish people. I don't know who they is. Is she's talking about the Democrats? Who knows? But it doesn't matter who they is. Read that tweet and tell me that's not batshit crazy. Just tell me that you could look at that and go, there is some substance to it, and we got to give her some sort of credit. Here's another one. I don't know who this woman is, but her name is Candace Taylor, and apparently some people do know who she is. She's probably some sort of right-wing influencer, but this is her. The weather can and is being manipulated. Wake up. Stop being ignorant or plain stupid. The irony here that we have somebody saying stop being ignorant or plain stupid, and that what she's calling somebody like me and probably most of you watching this, stop being ignorant or plain stupid. The weather can be manipulated. She goes on to say the most important election in the history of America is in 30 days. Pray. Georgia voting has been compromised and don't know if we will be able to get all of our early voting days in. Now a hurricane is coming straight for Florida. These two states are necessary for a Trump victory. No coincidence. And then she went into some more God and Jesus stuff that, again, if God and Jesus are on your side, I mean, obviously, I would imagine that they or he, whoever it is more powerful and probably can take that hurricane that George Soros and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, I'm sure is involved. I'm sure he's more powerful. If he's not, then I don't know. I mean, we might have to question the whole thing. I personally am not questioning it. If there really is a God and there is a Jesus, my guess is they're more powerful than the people that he actually created, and that he would be able to steer these hurricanes away. But according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, according to Candace Taylor, and one more of these idiots, this guy is somebody that I was in the car business for a while, and this guy had been shoved down my throat for quite some time as a sales expert. He teaches you how to sell. And I do remember listening to him. In fact, he came to us and we saw him live. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, this guy is so full of shit. And I'm learning nothing from him. But this guy's name is Grant Cardone. He's another one of these grifters who go out there and try to tell people how to sell. But he's a con artist. He's a lifelong artist. And this is obviously like why he's a big Donald Trump fan. But this is him. He is from the state of Florida too, and from Tampa. He grew up on the Gulf of Mexico watching storms since I was a young boy. I have never seen a storm start here and go east, which is ridiculous because there are numerous storms that started in the Gulf and went straight through the state of Florida. Do you think government is using technology to manipulate weather patterns and storms? Guys, I honestly do not care who it is that you're voting for. I don't. Vote for Donald Trump all you want to. Do you believe that this is in any way possible? And if it is possible, did they just understand? Did this technology just come through today? Did we just figure this out months ago? Did we have this technology 4 years ago? Did we have it 8 years ago? If we did, then why didn't we use it 8 years ago? This is some of the most batshit crazy things I have ever heard. And this race is virtually tied. This is the side. These are the people who are spewing this nonsense. And this race is somehow tied. I mean, I've said before, even if you have at the very least an eighth grade education, let's say you went through eighth grade and said, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm dropping out of school. I'm getting out. I think I've learned enough. I would contend that if you had at least that eighth grade education, that you would look at this and go, what is wrong with these people? How stupid do they think I am? Yeah, I didn't go through 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. I didn't have any college. I don't really watch the news. I don't watch anything educational. But even for me, this is beyond stupid. And for this to be passed along from Congress people and people who are influential in some respect. Again, I don't know who Candace Taylor is. I've heard the name and I know she's influential on the right side. And I know Grant Cardone has been somewhat, he's like a C minus D list famous person for his if you're in sales, you know who Grant Cardone is. So, for these people to spread this nonsense is just, I mean, I can't explain it, but our governor, Ron DeSantis, this is, again, what's so offensive about these people. Ron DeSantis always wanted to play tough guy, and he always played tough guy as governor here in the state of Florida. He's yelling at students, he's yelling at journalists, and he got this from the Donald Trump school of politics. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to yell at journalists. I'm going to yell at anybody that disagrees with me. I'm going to use the word woke 700 million times to prove that I am some anti-woke hero. And this is why Florida is so great, because if you come here, Target is not going to have 4 t-shirts on it that celebrate Gay Pride Month or whatever the hell it is he thinks that is such a badass. But here he is being a badass about the hurricane. And this is a time, too, where Floridians need your help. This is not a time where we need you to put on your best professional wrestling promo. But this is Ron DeSantis recently about Hurricane Milton and how FEMA, it has nothing to do with it. This is all me.
People have asked me about, is FEMA going to do this? Just let me be clear. In Florida, we run the show. FEMA's not running the show. We will utilize them to support some of the things we're doing, but you are not going to see FEMA running amok in Florida. I know that's been out there on the internet. That is not going to happen. I'm the sheriff that's in charge here, and we will make sure to protect you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay, he's going to protect us, just like Donald Trump's going to protect women, and all these so-called tough guys are going to protect us all. But let me tell you about Ron DeSantis and about what a pussy he is. When big bad Ron DeSantis had to run for president of the United States, he couldn't say anything about daddy. He would not say a bad word until somebody got in his ear and said, hey, Ron, if you really want to be in this race and you really want to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States, you can't keep bowing down to Donald Trump. You got to show a little bit of balls. And then when he got to that point, which was way too late, it was just so Ron DeSantis-ish. And I say that in a very demeaning and insulting way because Ron DeSantis at the end of the day is a big, fat pussy. He talks tough. He tries to put his shoulders up and acts tough towards like I said earlier, against press and students. But when it really came time to put the hammer down and say, you know what, I really want to be president of the United States, screw Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump was clowning him every day and was insulting him every day, Ron DeSantis didn't have it. He looked like a little tiny boy. And that's why he had 0% chance to overtake Donald Trump and to dethrone him. When the people in the beginning said that if anybody can do it, this is the guy. But you know what? He didn't have the balls enough. He wasn't man enough to stand up to a guy who really, at the end of the day, is easy to stand up to. I know that might be hard to believe, but it's not. Donald Trump is easy to stand up to, and you can see it when Kamala Harris just absolutely destroyed him in that debate. All she had to do was say little things like, go to his rallies. You're bored. People are leaving. That just completely threw this clown so far off his game. He had no idea what hit him. He had no clue because nobody came at him like that. And Ron DeSantis had that I don't know if he definitely didn't have the ability, but he had the opportunity to do it, and he didn't. And Ron DeSantis now wants to try to get his big boy pants back on because he was probably embarrassed by the way Donald Trump treated him. He was probably screamed at by his wife, telling him he's not a man anymore. And he probably feels like he's got to gain this back. And the way he's going to gain it back is by, again, yelling at FEMA like he's some kind of big, bad, tough guy. Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, none of these people are tough. None of them. They are big pussies disguised as tough guys. And unfortunately, there are too many men out there who think they are tough guys and think I'm with them because if I go on the other side, I'm not a tough guy like they are. But I got news for you. If you think that way, you're not a tough guy either. You're in the same ballpark as these wannabe tough guys. There's nothing tough about you. You are somebody that needs it was just mental health day yesterday. And yesterday would have been a great time for people like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump and everybody that bows down to these kind of people. It would have been a great day for you to celebrate mental health day because you would have been able to just take a second and go, you know what? I got to admit, I've got some sort of issues, no matter where it came from. And if you do, I feel for you. I really hope you get the help that you really need because being a pretend tough guy throughout your life has got to be exhausting. I'm sure it's not fun for you that you have to keep up this ruse constantly, that you associate yourself with toughness and manliness by associating yourself with people like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, who currently have women in their lives who want I know Donald Trump's wife wants nothing to do with him, but he's not man enough to come out and say, look, you know what? It's over between her and I. She doesn't love me anymore. I screwed up somewhere. I don't know where it is. Got to move on. He's keeping up this ruse like she really is in love with him. She's not. And I suspect Ron DeSantis's wife is probably a little embarrassed by by his performance running for president because it was hands down the most embarrassing run for president I've literally ever seen in my life. And I saw Jeb Bush run for president. This was a complete embarrassment. He's embarrassed. Trump should be embarrassed. And if you're voting for him because you think these guys are tough guys, you should be embarrassed. And I hope you get the mental health that you need, because it is important. And, again, I'm not trying to downplay any mental health or to make fun of you. I really am hoping that you get the help that you need. But finally, on this subject, again, this is why this is so dangerous. There's a gentleman who called into a show and was talking about his father-in-law who was in one of these areas whose home was destroyed and everything was destroyed during the hurricane. Listen to this phone call. And again, this goes to what I was saying earlier and the dangers of these lies and misinformation, not just by some regular people, but by Congress people and by somebody who wants to be president of the United States. This is just downright sickening.
Father-in-law lives just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and he was badly damaged by Hurricane Helene. And he has refused all FEMA help because he's a hardcore Trumper. And he literally believes that if he accepts anything from FEMA, they're going to take his house. I don't understand how so many people are under the spell of this freaking con man. I don't understand it.
Well, it's absolutely heartbreaking about your father-in-law. I'm so sorry to hear it. I hope. And
it's hard to even imagine it. I mean, he lost almost everything, and he's refusing all help from the federal government and complaining to us that he doesn't have food, that he doesn't have the stuff he needs, and yet he won't accept the help. What the hell are we supposed to do? We're not in a position to be able to fly across the country and help him. Yeah. There's people begging us to get him to accept help, and he won't do it.
Wow.
And I guarantee you, I'm not the only one. I guarantee you, I'm not the only one.
I wish there was something I could say as to, I don't know. Does he have access to any electronics where you could send him some information debunking this and that he might?
We've done all of that. We've done all of that. We've sent him all the FEMA bulletins. We've sent him all the stuff from the fact checkers. He doesn't believe it. He thinks he just believes Trump. Literally, Dan, it's a cult. He's a cult member. I'm sorry to say it. He's a cult member. And he's my father-in-law, and it sucks.
Man, I mean, just stuff like that is heartbreaking. And even I can listen to the story and I can hear about the father-in-law. And of course, the instinct is just like, you just want to say, this guy, what a moron, what an idiot. But there's something about people like that you feel sorry for, that for some reason they have it in their brain that this guy, Donald Trump, is the end all be all. He is the God. He is everything that he says is that you have to live by this. And if I don't live by this, then I am going basically in a way against an oath of our cult. And they never will see it that way. There are few people that were in that cult, got out of it, and now are speaking against the cult and speaking against what it's like to be in this ridiculous world where you believe that FEMA is just saying, screw you, I don't care, we're out of money. And you know why we're out of money? Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took it all and gave it to Ukraine. So now you guys are on your own. Then you have people in Springfield, Ohio, who are worried that their pets are being eaten by Haitian migrants that are there illegally, when none of that was true. Literally, none of it was true. And I say this on the show, and you can see my comments on a lot of the clips that I play. A lot of them saying, well, just look at the interviews of the people who live in Springfield. And you just got to ask, okay, if it is happening all over the place, why isn't even Fox News and Newsmax and the craziest of crazy right-wing channels covering it? And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's not happening. It is just not happening. But we have people now. It is 2024 where people have access to all kinds of information, and you can get the truth if you truly feel like getting it. If you really want to get the truth, there's two different kinds of truth, unfortunately, now. The truth that is real and the truth that you want to hear. And people I know, I've heard it before. You're telling me, they're saying this to me. You're telling me that you're not just looking for your truth, that everything you say is true and everything that I'm saying is lying. I mean, and that is difficult to combat because you could show them proof and I can ask them, show me the proof. And they'll get a video of one crackpot from Springfield, Illinois saying, yeah, my pets were eaten, and there's absolutely no truth to it. There's no proof that there's not true to it. That's what conspiracy theorists do too. That's what they're the king of. They're the king of taking morsels of something that has a ring of truth to it and then arguing it as if there is a possibility it can be true. And then when you try to argue with them, they just come back and basically say, well, you can't prove that it's not true. And you go into these circles and down these rabbit holes with these people. And again, it's just getting sad. And you wonder, do they really believe it? Or is it something that they just need to believe in their life for whatever reason it is? There are, somebody has said this before, and I believe it, is that the study one day of the psychology of either the Trump voter or the QAnon conspiracy theorists that we are seeing now, they're so prevalent. Conspiracy theorists, when I was growing up, those were the kind of people that you would just kind of shake your head and you'd just back away and just go, okay, thanks, we'll see ya. Okay, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. And you get the fuck out of there. But now it's like mainstream. It is a good 30% of the population, which is a lot of people. It might even be more who buy into this nonsense. But the sad part is that a lot of these people may not even be buying into it. What they're doing is it satisfies something inside of them to where they're like, I don't care if it's true or not. This is gospel to me. This is life for me. This is now something that I feel something because of this. So no matter whether it's true or it's not true, guess what? In my world, it's true. And if you don't believe it, you're the idiot. And this is unfortunately where we're at. And we are having people who are going to be voting for the president of the United States based on this nonsense and the feeling of to whether or not it's true or it's not true. They now have this ingrained feeling that this is something that they need to battle for and they need to vote for to keep this going because it satisfies their life. But I've said this once and I'll say it every fucking time, is that when you vote for it, and if your guy happens to win, at some point you're going to have to face the music and you're going to have to look in the mirror and go, what did I do? How could I be so stupid? I had people all around me telling me how crazy I was and I didn't believe it. Now I'm screwed because I voted for somebody who laughs at me, who does not care about me, who has lied to me, and now we are screwed. And I'm telling you, this is not hyperbole. If Donald Trump wins, and if they win the House and the Senate, wave goodbye. I'm just telling you, wave goodbye to this country. You can laugh all you want to as a Trump person, but if you are somebody that does not make multi-millions of dollars a year, wave goodbye to this country, wave goodbye to your rights, wave goodbye to your paycheck, wave goodbye to everything. I'm just telling you, Project 2025, read it. If you're not going to read all 900 pages, read the main points, read the main things that go on in Project 2025. But anyway, I could talk about this till I'm blue in the face. We're only 3 weeks away until the election. Changing people's minds at this point probably isn't going to happen. If you are a diehard Trump fan, it's never going to happen. But what you want to see is some of these people who are independents. That's really who are the toss-up voters at this point. And if you are an independent, and an independent can at least be smart enough to discern between what is fact and what is absolute nonsense. And an independent can tell that migrants eating pets is absolute nonsense. And just based on the fact that you have a candidate who can actually make that up and insert it into a debate that migrants are eating pets with zero proof to it, just like there was zero proof of the election being stolen. There's zero proof of anything Donald Trump says, literally no proof at all of what he says. So hopefully enough independent voters see this and go, yeah, you know what? I don't necessarily love Kamala Harris, but I can't allow this. Can't allow this in our country. You know what? Maybe in 4 years, we'll still have a country if Kamala Harris is elected the president. But if I don't think she does a good job, maybe we can get somebody else in there, a Republican who is sane and is not talking about Hannibal Lecter and boats and sharks and eating pets and windmills and all this nonsensical stuff that we can reset in 4 years. If Donald Trump becomes president and they win the House and the Senate, there is no resetting in 4 years. And this is far from me wanting to ever say, I told you so. I don't want to tell anybody I told you so. But if this happens, I'm just telling you, it's not going to be good. I am just telling you, it is going to be really, really bad if Donald Trump wins and they win the House and the Senate. So, but guess what? Good news. It's not happening. Kamala Harris is going to win that election, regardless of what you heard. I told you we're going to get into that later. But what we want to get into now is Barack Obama was out on the campaign trail recently for Kamala Harris. And man, if you can pick one person to get under Donald Trump's skin more than anybody, it is Barack Hussein Obama. He has been, as the saying goes, I don't even like repeating these sayings, but this one is true, living in his head rent-free more than any person in the entire world. He cannot stand this man. Ever since he made fun of him at that correspondence dinner, he has been so angry and so hateful towards Barack Obama that just that name drives him absolutely insane. But Obama was on the campaign trail, had a few things to say about Donald Trump. In fact, Obama was talking about the price of diapers, and somehow Donald Trump's name came up. And I'm sure when Donald Trump heard it, probably didn't take too
car seat or diapers. I remember buying diapers. I remember the first time I went in the store right after Malia was born. I was like, what? That's how much diapers cost? I remember changing diapers. You think Donald Trump ever changed a diaper?
If you didn't hear that, somebody just yelled out his own.
Yeah. I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say it.
That drove Donald Trump absolutely insane. And there is a partial potential that it is true. And it has been said. And again, I'm saying this half jokingly. This is not something I take seriously, but there have been rumors that Donald Trump does have to wear a diaper because he is having some issues as he's getting older and he's not able to hold it inside. So it would not be surprising to me if Donald Trump does wear a diaper. You've seen pictures online where it looks like the pants seem to be filled a little bit more than normal, than you would normally see. So Donald Trump wearing a diaper would not be surprising to me, but I am not somebody that would say that with all. I don't say that definitively because I don't know that he wears a diaper or he doesn't, but it is possible. But this is something we were talking about a little bit earlier too, about being manly and masculine and who you vote for. Barack Obama made a point too about, looking at what you perceive as the tough guy and voting for that guy. And this was Obama's response to it.
I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've said this a million times, is the strength of a human being, the strength of man, or whatever it is you want to say, it is standing up for people who are marginalized, who have a harder time standing up for themselves. And you see, look at the movies. Whenever you see the movies, you see the superhero. What is the superhero always doing? The big, strong superheroes that go out and save people, what are they always doing? They're defending people who can't defend themselves. They're not assholes who go around saying pets are being eaten and making fun of somebody because they're not like you, and disparaging somebody because they I don't even know why, but that to me is the real strength of a man, and somebody that could step up and go, hey dude, that shit ain't cool. What is your problem? Just let them alone. Go about your own business and mind your own business. Tim Walz says that. So I'm glad that he said that. The people that you're talking to, though, they already know this. The people voting for Donald Trump do not know this. They don't know this. They think that a guy who talks like a professional wrestler is the tough guy. They think that the guy who trolls libtards is the tough guy. But again, to me, these are sad people. These are sad people who have little to no identity of their own. So they need somebody else to create this identity for them. And that's why you see an overcompensation with a lot of these guys who their whole identity is not them and what they've accomplished in their own lives and what they can do and who they stand up for. It is all about one guy that has given them their personality. That's why they have t-shirts, hats, flags. I'll admit, part of my personality are my sports teams. The Mets, the Celtics, the Dolphins, the Hurricanes. That's why you'll see me wear hats and t-shirts, and I will get into my team. But at the end of the day, my team is not affecting other people's lives. It is not insulting somebody unless maybe you're the opposing team. But at the end of the day, I'm not looking to eliminate that team from society. I'm not looking to eliminate these teams from the league. I might be looking to eliminate them during the playoffs, but outside of that, it's just more good natured. It is a spirit and something that you root for. But these people make Donald Trump a lifelong con man, a lifelong liar, a convicted felon, a guy who is found liable for rape and sexual assault. This is their personality now. This is what they've taken on as this is who I am as a human being, because I personally myself can't express to you who I am as a human being because I've really been able to do nothing to do that. So I need somebody else to do that for me. And to me, that's pretty sad. And I wish, again, I've said this before, but I wish the people who have that mentality would get the help that they need. Finally, this is Barack Obama talking about the economy. Now, I've said a million times, this is something close to my heart, the economy, because it drives me insane that, in fact, I think the Democrats could have done a way better job talking about the economy for the last at least 2 years. And first of all, I want to play the clip about what Barack Obama has to say about the economy and how he played the role as to why Donald Trump's economy was good and not because of Donald Trump, which is factual. And we'll get into that after the clip.
And the reason some people think, wow, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good because it was my economy.
100%.
We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did.
200%.
I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time.
300% correct.
So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing.
And I cut that out just a second earlier, but excellent job. But Democrats, where were you saying this? Why were you not saying this for years? I still, to this day, cannot understand why the Democrats could not lay out exactly where the economy was when Donald Trump took over, why the economy got where it was after Donald Trump left, and where it is now. Why can't we effectively explain that to the American people? And part of the problem is because Democrats are so scared of how, if you explain it properly, how the right-wing propaganda media will take it and shape it into a way that Democrats are putting the blame on somebody else and they're not taking responsibility for the economy. Well, they shouldn't have to take responsibility for the economy because the economy, first of all, was not their fault. And as I said, wasn't even necessarily Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump did a terrible, terrible, terrible job handling COVID as far as the amount of people who died from that horrific pandemic. But the economy, what happened at the end of Donald Trump's term, where all the jobs were lost, where GDP was in the minus. We weren't even in the plus in GDP when Donald Trump left office. When all that stuff happened, that was going to happen. Didn't matter. Barack Obama himself could have been president. That was going to happen. One of the greatest economical presidents that we've ever had in the history of this country, Bill Clinton. Guess what? That would have happened. It would have happened no matter what, because the pandemic, in fact, you hear even Donald Trump say, we had everything going great until the pandemic. So why is it okay for Donald Trump to take credit or discredit what happened during the economy because of the pandemic, but Joe Biden wins, and then all of a sudden everything is Joe Biden's fault. It's logic. Just logistically think about it for a second. But you know what? People can't do that in this country. They are simplistic in their way about thinking about things. And again, I'm not saying that every single person is simplistic thinking about it this way, but there are too many people who do not understand how things work. And they are very simple, especially when you have a right-wing propaganda media who is going to tell everybody, well, inflation is high. You know why? Joe Biden's president. They mentioned COVID and the pandemic 0 times. They will not mention the pandemic and say that the economy is not great right now because of the pandemic. It's because Joe Biden's president. Well, why? Why is it? Well, because he gave people money during the pandemic. Well, so did Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump gave more money than Joe Biden gave. Well, the deficit and the debt. Well, hold on. Donald Trump's deficit and debt is 2 times the amount, $8 trillion when he left office. The debt went up to $8 trillion. Joe Biden's was $4 trillion. So it was half. So how is the inflation Joe Biden's fault? Well, he's president. No, I understand, but every single country in the world had double-digit inflation. Some countries still are suffering from bad inflation. Why is it Joe Biden's fault? Doesn't matter if people believe it. That's all we care about. And guess what? Way too many people believe it. I have people to this day still telling me inflation's high. If you're listening to what I just said, do you think inflation is high? Do you? Tell me what the inflation rate is right now if you think inflation's high. Well, I'm paying more for eggs. No, you're not. You're not paying more for eggs. If you look at the price of eggs nationwide, they are on the same level that they were pre-pandemic. So you're not paying for it. You know why you think you're paying more for it? Because you hear Fox News telling you you're paying more for it. And you're going to continue to regurgitate that without fact. You don't care about fact. In fact, it's been clear that this country does not care about fact anymore. They just don't. They care about what works for them. And what works for them right now is that inflation is high, which it's not. In fact, today, new report, it went down even more. We're down to 2.4% inflation, an inflation that was at 9% during Biden's term, but it wasn't because of Joe Biden. It was because of COVID and what COVID did worldwide to the entire world. If COVID had never hit, I'll admit one thing, and I've admitted this on the show before, COVID never hit, very possible Donald Trump's still the president. Why? Because the economy was doing well under his presidency, but just as Barack Obama said, it was because he took over an economy that was already way on the upswing. This is not something that I'm saying because I want you to believe it. As I've said a million times on this show, don't believe me. I don't care if you don't believe me. Go do your own research and just figure out, where was the economy when Barack Obama left office? Was it going up? Were things on the uptrend? He took over one of the worst economies in the history of this country. We were this close to another Great Depression when Barack Obama took over. And when he left office, everything was on the upswing economically. So all Donald Trump had to do was sit around and do nothing, which is basically what he did until the tax cuts for the rich came. And then the tax cuts for the rich came and exploded the debt. And that's Donald Trump's legacy. That and starting an insurrection against his own country because he's such a baby that he couldn't handle losing to Joe Biden in 2020, which he lost, and he lost badly, and he lost cleanly. He lost with absolutely no election interference. There was nothing nefarious about the election in which he lost. And And that's just like the bottom line. Like I said, if anybody disagrees with what I'm saying, again, I'm please just share with me exactly what Donald Trump did for the United States economy to be where it was when he was president, and exactly what Joe Biden did to make inflation go up, even though it went up everywhere around the world, and explain to me why Joe Biden's policies not only made inflation go up in this country, but why did it go up in every single other country? And in fact, even way more than it did in this country. Why did it go up in every other country across the world? And why are people still in other countries trying to recover from the pandemic when this country, for the most part, has recovered? Not just inflation. Inflation went from 9.1%. Now it's down to 2.4%, which the Federal Reserve wants to be around 2%, which we're basically right there. And that's exactly why the Federal Reserve just lowered the interest rates, because they saw an incredible recovery in the economy in this country. Unemployment, unparalleled what happened during Joe Biden's presidency, despite the pandemic and despite COVID. Unemployment was under 4% for 2 straight years. That had not happened in 50 years. That is unprecedented, that when you are going through an inflationary time where not only did you not lose jobs, but you gained jobs, and unemployment was at a 50-year low for 2 straight years. I could go down 5, 10 other economic factors that happened under Joe Biden during pandemic and the recovery. And what happened during that presidency was just remarkable. And again, I've said this once, I'll say it every single time I have the opportunity to say it. Joe Biden's presidency is going to go down as one of the most consequential and best presidencies that we've ever had in this country. His leadership through the inflationary times, through the pandemic, and everything that he did. And because he was old, he didn't quite get the same sort of media coverage and press. More people were focusing on this guy's age. So in the short term, his legacy is going to be he was old and it was time for him to move on. But when time goes on and the legacy is going to be written by historians and professional scholars, not by people on 8chan and on Truth Social. I don't care about what they have to say, because they're programmed cuckoo clocks. They don't know what they're saying. So it doesn't matter what they say. But when you hear people who actually understand history and understand what did happen during the 4 years of Joe Biden, you're going to find out that Joe Biden's going to go down as one of the best presidents and leaders that this country has ever seen. Proud to have voted for him. I would have voted for him again. I still think he would have won if he had ran. But that's all I got to say about that. I was just speaking about the January 6th and the insurrection against your own country, and talking about the 2020 election and the fact that we are in 2024 and that we are still mentioning the 2020 election and whether or not it was fair, whether or not it was rigged, to me is a disservice to the American people. And it is the media has failed this country severely. All media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Newsmax. I don't care what channel you want to throw at me, because I get that all the time in the comments, or I get it anytime I make a comment on Twitter or whatever, is that everything that I get is from CNN or MSNBC. I'm not a religious person, so I'm not going to swear to God. I will say that I love my dog and my cat, and I will swear on their lives that I literally do not sit around and watch CNN or MSNBC. I don't watch it. You know, I used to record Rachel Maddow every night, and I would watch Rachel Maddow. I even stopped watching Rachel Maddow, not because I have any issue with her. I still think she's fantastic, and I think she does a great job. But I am kind of over the sensationalized television. I'm over the opinionated television. I particularly like straight news and facts. Again, what I'm saying is I believe that Rachel Maddow is very factual. I believe that everything she's saying is based on fact. I think a lot of the things that CNN say are based on fact, but there's way too much opinion added into these facts, which I'm not a fan of. Now, you could say, well, Jesus Christ, Brian, isn't your whole show based on opinion? It is. And you would have a very good point, because a lot of what I am saying is obviously an opinion, but I like to at least express my opinions based on facts. And for me, because I don't like cable news and I don't like people sitting around and just screaming at each other and yelling at each other, this for me is at least a therapy. This at least I could just express myself and talk to people that are out there. I get people who agree with me. I get people who disagree with me. And, you know, for me, at least just for me, I feel better being able to do this. And I just, like I said, I don't know. I'm over the whole cable news thing. I'm just over the way that they over sensationalize things instead of having just straight conversation. But I don't know. That's just me. That's just my opinion. And I will admit, what I'm saying there may not be factual to you, but that's just how I feel about cable news overall. But anyway, to my point, going back to the 2020 election, JD Vance had the opportunity once again. He was asked by a New York Times reporter in a sit down. I think the interview from the New York Times, did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? And this is just fascinating that these people cannot simply answer this question. I mean, you would think strategically that they would finally get with these people at least 2 years ago and say, look, if you're asked this question, just say, yeah, he won and move on. Because guess what? In 2023, you're never going to be asked it again. In 2024, you're never going to be asked it again. And 2024 is going to be kind of important because that's an election year. So the quicker we can get this question out of our lives, the better. Yeah, maybe Donald Trump will be upset for a day or two. But if we have learned anything in this country, that if you can just get through one event, people will forget about it sometimes the next day, sometimes the next week. I mean, we had a potential president of the United States, a presidential candidate. He was shot at about 2 months ago. And now people don't, you would think it was 3 years ago. Nobody talks about it. Nobody gives a shit about it. But you would think that they would have strategized this a little bit better. But nope. Here we go. JD Vance, couple-minute clip, and I'm going to let the whole thing play because it's pretty freaking fascinating that you cannot answer this question still. It is unbelievable.
You were asked to clarify if you believe Trump lost the 2020 election. Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election, but we're focused on the future. I think there's an obsession
First time asked.
here with focusing on 2020. I'm much more worried about what happened after 2020, which is a wide open border, groceries that are unaffordable. And look,
Senator,
Lulu,
yes or no?
okay.
Did Donald Trump lose
Second
the
time.
2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said it cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
First of all, I want to address that. That independent people said that it cost Donald Trump millions of votes. Who are these independent people? Nobody. There is nobody legitimately that came out and said that a story about Hunter Biden's laptop. He's talking about big tech. What he's talking about is that Twitter, for less than 24 hours, suppressed the story because there was really no proof to it. But the next day, they allowed the story to be on their site. So if you are naive enough to believe that Twitter suppressing a story about, again, let's go Hunter Biden's laptop. Second of all, what about Hunter Biden's laptop that we have heard to this day? Tell me something that you have heard this day, because Hunter Biden's laptop is out there now. So tell me exactly what anybody would have heard at that time where people will go, holy shit, I am absolutely not voting for Donald Trump because this was in Hunter Biden's laptop. This is something that I wish that this journalist would have asked him, but her job is to get her to answer his questions. It's her job to get him to answer her questions. It is not her job to answer his questions. But this is something that the media and journalists need to start learning to do, is that this is how they're going to deflect. They're going to start asking you questions knowing that you're not there to answer their questions. So they're going to skip over and not push back on it. But that's something that I hope and wish that they would start doing.
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again.
Three
Did Donald
times.
Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes? I think
Senator
that's the
Vance,
question.
I'm going to
Four.
ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020
And I've answered
election?
your question with another question. You answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I have asked this question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating a slogan rather than engaging with what I'm saying.
That's
which is
just
that
a
when
fact.
our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government, in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes.
Now he's steering
I'm
away
worried
from the
about Americans
conversation.
who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way.
That's
I'm talking
not
about something very discrete. A problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
Senator,
didn't.
would you have certified the election in 2020? Yes or no?
New
I've
question.
said that I would have voted against certification because of the concern that I just raised. I think that when you have technology companies,
The answer is no.
when you have technology companies censoring Americans at a mass scale in a way that, again, independent studies have suggested affect the vote, I think that it's right to protest against that, to criticize that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And
Yeah, it'd be difficult for me to interview these people. And I think to be a real journalist, like a top journalist, you have to have some patience and you have to have some candor. I would have said, no. I'm not, be quiet. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you with you trying to tell me this is a slogan or, something that I am making up. 60 court cases legitimately threw out your cases because you had zero case. And in fact, Trump appointed judges throughout your case because you had no case. If you think you're going to sit here and use slogans against me and calling my stuff slogans, you're out of your fucking mind. Now answer the fucking question. Did he or did he not win the election? Just say yes or no. If you want to say no, be a man and say no, he didn't win it. But you're going to sit here and dance around it and you think you're going to play around with me. That ain't happening. And again, I wouldn't do very good. I wouldn't be able to handle it. And people would have probably looked at me and go, this guy's flying off the fucking handle. He can't be interviewing people. And they'd be right. I wouldn't disagree or argue with them. But that is, to me, it's very dangerous. And she's right. This is important, that if you are going to run for president and you are going to be the vice presidential candidate, if you cannot answer the question, who won the 2020 election and did they win it fairly? If you can't answer that question, and again, I can't even believe that we're having this conversation, because this is not what politics has ever been. There's always been contentious moments between Democrats and Republicans. There's always been differences. But the one thing that you at least could say up to a certain point is that the Democrats that were in Washington and the Republicans that were in Washington and the independents that were in Washington, they could all be in the same room and speak on personal levels and get along with each other to some extent. But there wasn't this childish hatred that you have for somebody across the aisle. And now we are in a very dangerous place in this country where if you are on the other side, and yeah, I'm going to say this in particular, if you are a Democrat to a Republican, you are the enemy. Now, Democrats don't necessarily look at Republicans as the enemy. They will look at this MAGA movement and they will look at the people who subject themselves to MAGA as being somebody who definitely is trying to destroy this country. Now, again, on the opposite side, they think that the Democrats are trying to destroy this country. But the Democrats would absolutely never, ever have a candidate come in and say, I want to be dictator on day one. They would never, ever, ever say, this election was stolen from me, and get people riled up enough to go to the Capitol and attack it. Now, before you even try to think you're going to throw Hillary Clinton at me and say she denied that she lost the election and that Russia gave Donald Trump help. Number one, the very next day, Hillary Clinton called Donald Trump and conceded. Number two, Hillary Clinton brought 0 cases to court to try to have the election overturned. Number three, Hillary Clinton didn't try to get a bunch of people to storm the Capitol to stop the certification of the election. Number four, she didn't have subsets of groups trying to undermine the election and trying to put together fake electors to try to say, I'm not going to certify the votes for this particular state. And number five, most importantly, Russia 100%, not 99, not 98, not 90, 100% interfered in this election. There is 0 question about it. There are full reports from Robert Mueller that clearly stated that Russia interfered in our election with the intent of Donald Trump to win. Now, if your argument is that there was no proof that Donald Trump colluded with Russia to do that, you have an argument there. Nobody is saying that. But 100%, let me back up before you people lose your mind. Yeah, maybe some people were going, Donald Trump colluded with Russia. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe they weren't. I'm still not convinced that they didn't, but I'm not using that as a top talking point. We're going to let that slide. We're going to say Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter. Russia did have something to do with the 2016 election. They 100% interfered with it. There are Trump associates that went to jail for it who asked them, why were they in prison if there was absolutely 0 collusion at all, or there was 0 interference between Russia and what happened in this idea that we're continuing to let that slide too, that Russia had nothing to do with it. And they keep using this term, Russia, Russia, Russia. What the fuck are you talking about, Russia? Yeah, Russia 100%. Vladimir Putin, his people, definitely interfered in this election to try to get Donald Trump to win. And a lot of that came from misinformation and disinformation, and it hit Facebook in a way that that platform had never seen before. You got to remember, Facebook was still sort of in its infancy stages at that time, especially when it came to expanding more than, hey, Jesus Christ, it's Greg from high school. I haven't seen Greg or Tammy or whoever it is that you started making friends with in high school. Now it started to expand more to news, and it started expanding more to links and channels and stuff like this. And Russia saw that, and they masterfully put together a campaign against Hillary Clinton, and not just against Hillary Clinton. They sowed a lot of doubt between all different kinds of people and all different kinds of voters, that mass chaos started happening online, and people were questioning whether or not Hillary Clinton really was somebody that we should be voting for. And maybe we should be voting for this new guy who is a multimillionaire, and he's going to run our country like a business, even though Russia left out the fact that the businessman that they were helping out was one of the worst businessmen you'll ever see in your entire life. I encourage anybody, go get the book Lucky Loser, or just watch any documentary about Donald Trump as a businessman. Just type in documentary Donald Trump businessman, watch it, and you'll find out he was horrific. He was garbage, terrible businessman. But anyway, it's very frustrating to talk about this stuff. It's going to get very frustrating in the next 3 weeks. Let's wrap up. You know, there's always Trump clips to play. And as I've said before on this show, that I'm hoping to get to the point where we are, the only Trump clips that we are playing is him whining about losing, about the instructions that he is giving to his flying monkeys to put on their little militia costumes to go out and try to cause havoc because he lost. I don't know that he's going to get the same amount of flying monkeys that he got last time. He's going to get some for sure. I mean, there are people who live their whole lives to be a Donald Trump flying monkey. And it's just the most proudest and greatest thing that they could wear on their shirt as a badge of honor, even though they look like fucking morons. But speaking of fucking morons, here is Donald Trump. We talked about earlier how Obama lives rent-free in his head. This guy cannot get Barack Obama out of his head. Here he is at the, I believe, the Michigan or Detroit Economic Forum, and he's going off about Barack Obama winning the Nobel Prize and some more ridiculousness that if you can make it out, good luck.
Or named Obama, I would have had the Nobel Prize given in 10 seconds. He got the Nobel Prize. He didn't even know what the hell he got it for. Remember, he got elected. Well, so did I. He got elected, and they announced he was getting the Nobel Prize. Remember, he said, "Oh, what did I do?" He didn't know what the hell he did. He got the Nobel Prize for doing nothing. For getting elected, but I got elected too. And, you know, if I think of that, we did something, the Abraham Accords, unprecedented. Nobody thought it was possible. And I'm not saying want or not. I'm just saying if it was anybody else, liberal, Democrat, they would have had it before the damn thing was even signed, you know. So there has to be fairness, and I don't care, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not.
He's absolutely looking for it.
I'm just saying that there's a lot of unfairness in this world, and I think.
Who listens to this guy? Seriously, I just need somebody. Explain it to me. Explain to me how you listen to that rambling and going, we want him to run the world. Because if you're the president of the United States, you're essentially not just running this country, but in a way, you are in charge of the entire world. Because what happens in this country affects every other country in the world. If our economy is shot and gone, the rest of the world is shot and gone. There's not going to be an economy that is going to thrive if the economy in the United States is shot and gone. Just not happening. It was clear during COVID, if you followed anything that happened worldwide, once COVID hit, the United States economy took hits. And when the United States economy takes hits, the world economy takes hits. When it gets better, the world economy gets better. That's just what happens. We want this guy We want this guy in charge. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you have Republican beliefs. In fact, I pine for the days of a smart Republican who we can look at and go, hey, I may not disagree, or I may not agree with his policies, his or her policies, but, they're not looking to destroy the Constitution. They're not looking to destroy the democracy of this country. And they're not going to make the United States look like the biggest fools in the world stage. This is the guy that we are sending out to talk to Vladimir Putin. Are you kidding me? Vladimir Putin is dying, absolutely dying for this guy to be president. Do you know why? Because Putin is smart. Putin is a horrible, terrible human being. He is horrific, and Putin's dream, just like Osama bin Laden's dream, is to destroy the United States of America. Now, Putin knows that he could never destroy the United States of America militarily, because if he tried, we would wipe Russia out in half an hour. I know that's dramatic, but you understand what I'm saying. So the way Putin can do it is the way he did it back in 2016, is cause chaos, just like he's been doing basically, and his Russian counterparts have been doing for years now in this country. That's why this country hates each other so much. And it's not just because of Donald Trump. This is the work of Vladimir Putin. And this is not coming from Brian Rundle on a stupid YouTube show that has 500 followers. This is coming from our own intelligence agencies. They have stated numerous time and time again that Vladimir Putin has interfered in this country to sow chaos, and it has worked beautifully for him. And he wants Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States because he knows how stupid Donald Trump is. He knows how easily manipulated Donald Trump is. All you have to do is tell Donald Trump that he's the smartest person you've ever met. Vladimir Putin's okay with that because he knows to get what he wants, all he has to do is say, oh boy, thank God you're president because you're the best leader in the entire world, even better than me, Donald. I mean, you are so great that now Russia is going to be great because of you. Donald Trump will eat that up, and Vladimir Putin will be able to get whatever it is that he wants for him because Donald Trump is a weak, pathetic human being. And he's a horrible businessman. He's a terrible negotiator, and he's never been good at it. There's proof of that too. So how anybody wants this guy to be president, I'm just telling you, if you think this is one of these elections where one person wins and the other person doesn't and we're going to be fine, I caution you this time. It's not. And by the way, if you're a woman, how in the world, if you have daughters, if you're a man with a daughter, you're voting for this guy? Okay, we'll see. Anyway, here's another clip. I just want you to watch it. When it's over, if you have access to the comments or you want to send me an email later at runshousepodcast@gmail.com, just listen to the clip and explain to me what in the hell this guy is talking about. I have absolutely no idea. But again, people want him to be president.
Many countries, they do that. And then all of a sudden you hear that they're leaving Milwaukee or they're leaving wherever they may be located. It's very sad to see it.
Okay.
And it's so simple. I mean,
By the way,
this isn't like Elon with his rocket ships that land within
this was a question about the economy, by the way.
12 inches on the moon where they wanted to land. Or he gets the engines back. That was the first I realized. I said, who the hell did that? I saw engines about 3-4 years ago. These things were coming, cylinders, no wings, no nothing. And they're coming down very slowly, landing on a raft in the middle of the ocean someplace with a circle. Boom. Reminded me of the Biden circles that he used to have, right? He'd have 8 circles and he couldn't fill them up. But then I heard he beat us with the popular vote. I don't know. Couldn't fill up the 8 circles. I always loved those circles. They were so beautiful. They were so beautiful to look at. In fact, the person that did them, that was the best thing about the level of that circle was great. But they couldn't get people, so they used to have the press stand in those circles because they couldn't get the people. Then I heard we lost. Oh, we lost.
I swear none of this video is edited. None of it.
No, we're never going to let that happen again. But we've been abused by other countries. We've been abused by our own politicians, really more than other countries. I can't.
The Biden circles, and that somebody told them that they lost the popular vote and Elon landed thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm willing to give somebody a $5,000 if you can tell me exactly what the fuck this guy's talking about. What is he saying? What is he talking about? And this is not a one-off. First of all, I just played one clip. That's a second clip. I swear to you, I can pull up, I don't know, give me an over-under, 500 clips over the last, just this year. I can pull up hundreds of clips just this year that are just like this one. They kept for months and months and months. The reason why Joe Biden basically had to drop out of this race is because all anybody could do was talk about his cognitive decline and his age and that how he's losing it. After the debate, he didn't have a good debate, and it's because he's old. He had to get out of the race. Where is the talk about Donald Trump's cognitive decline and how old he is? There's a little bit here and there. I know the New York Times ran a huge piece, what was it, last week, about his cognitive decline. But I mean, shit, we're 3 weeks away from the election now at this point. This is something that we should have been talking about for years, because he is mentally not there. He is gone. And we're going to let this guy be in charge of the country and in charge of the world. We're going to let this guy take phone calls from Vladimir Putin. I mean, what is going on here? I just don't understand. Here is Donald Trump talking about Kamala Harris and her 60 Minutes interview. Again, I don't know what is he talking about?
To watching her on 60 Minutes and on watching that horrible statement that she made. They call it a word salad. I don't really like those words because it was really worse than that.
No, because you don't like salads.
But after watching that, I don't think she's interested in 33. I don't think she has any idea what's happening, okay? I think she's dumber than hell. And we've had enough of that for 4 years. We're not going to have it any longer.
Yeah, if you had a kid, I don't know, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, and let's say they were doing something in school where they were playing government, and your kid, they had a night assembly where that night they were going to name the class president, and the class president had to get up and do a speech. And your kid got up there and called the other person dumb and said, you know, she's really a dumb person. My guess, if you were a good parent, that you would have talked to your child and say, we do not do that. And either you are punished now, or the next time you do something like that, you're going to be punished, because that's not who we are. We are better than that. We are more mature than that. This is a guy who is close to 80 years old and running for president of the United States, and he's calling his opponent stupid. And he doesn't even do it in a manner that sounded sort of with authority. It sounded childish the way he said it. And I said this now, this is the third clip I've played of him. And after the third clip, I'm going to say again, this is who some people want to be the president of the United States. I want to continue to press. If you are a Republican, a real Republican, and you feel like Kamala Harris is not for you, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But if you think that this person is for you, you think this is the person you want to represent the country and represent you, I promise you, this is not the guy. He is going to wind up destroying this country. Again, I know it sounds like hyperbole, but I feel pretty confident that if Donald Trump is the president of the United States, we are going to see a decline in this country on a level that is not something that people are going to be pleased about. And at that point, it's going to be too late. And it's going to take years and maybe decades to recover from. So I hope that you keep that in mind and maybe not just listen to me, but to do a little bit more research before you go out and you make your final vote. The final clip here is Donald Trump is in Detroit. He needs Michigan in order to have a chance to win, because really at the end of the day, what it comes down to is those Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If Kamala Harris wins those 3 states, regardless of the margin, doesn't matter if she wins by that much, if she wins by 0.01 points in all 3 of those states, this election's over. She wins. That's really what it comes down to. And Donald Trump is in Detroit and trying. When you're in the particular state, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the voters in that state to listen to you and to vote for you. Well, he happened to be in the city of Detroit and gives a warning to the people about if Kamala Harris wins, just exactly what this country is going to turn into. And keep in mind, he's in Detroit, Michigan.
I don't think anything that we're talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands.
I'll tell you what, that's a hell of a strategy to walk into the city that you're trying to get people to vote for you in, because Detroit has, I would imagine, the largest population of any city in the state of Michigan. That the strategy is to say that if Kamala Harris is going to win the presidency, that the country is going to be like your city. Now, let's unpack that for a second. The people in Detroit do not think that their city is the piece of shit that he's trying to make it out to be. So one, that's offensive to them as the people who live there, but he's also telling them that I think that your city is a piece of shit, and that if Kamala Harris wins, that the rest of the country is going to be like your piece of shit city. And again, heck of a strategy. And what concerns me is if you are sitting in Detroit and you have somebody to your face tell you that you are a piece of shit, your city's a piece of shit, and you go, yeah, I'm going to vote for that guy. I don't know. The psychology behind it, we said before, there are going to be studies for decades of the psychology of the Trump voter once this is all said and done. And what I am hoping that in 25 days, that this will all be said and done. And that once Donald Trump loses this election, which he's going to lose, I'm just here to tell you, and I say this with confidence, I don't care what the polls are saying. I don't care how the media is trying to scare you. I don't care what Twitter is trying to say. In fact, it is clear Elon Musk is doing everything he can to sow disinformation on the site that he owns. We saw the clips of him just on the show we played on Tuesday. And he said himself to Tucker Carlson, if Kamala Harris wins this election and Donald Trump doesn't, I'm fucked. He alluded about going to prison for some particular reason. Now, I can guarantee you Kamala Harris is going to have nothing to do with sending Elon Musk to prison, but there's something that he's afraid about. And the richest man in the world who owns a social media site, I promise you, is rigging the game on his own site for anybody that's on it. And he's basically playing Putin himself. He is making sure that the information that he wants on that site is on there, and that the information that he doesn't want on his site, not fully because he can't fully do it, but to some extent he will be suppressing it. There's just absolutely no question about it. I read an article today about Elon Musk and his role in this upcoming election, and the fact that the richest man in the world wants Donald Trump to win should probably tell you something. The person that makes the most money, and generally the multi-billionaires that make the most money, they are giving the money to Donald Trump. They want him to win. What does that tell you? Do you think this guy is on your side? I promise you he's not. He's already, his only one accomplishment during his presidency was a tax cut for the richest of people in the country. And he wants to cut taxes more for them under his next presidency. He has said that. He has been on video and on audio saying that he will cut taxes again for the richest people in the country. Kamala Harris wants to raise those taxes on those people, not on you, not on me. If you actually are going to believe that what Donald Trump and the Elon Musk and all these people want you to believe, Kamala Harris's plan is not to raise taxes on any of us. Her plan is to raise the taxes, not up, but back to where they were, to a place. And in fact, she's going to want to raise, her plan is to raise them to a place that was even lower than what Joe Biden wanted to raise them to. So she's at least looking for a compromise, which I still think you should raise the taxes even higher. But what she wants to do is raise the taxes on these multi-billionaires. And the reason why she wants to do that is because she wants to be able to use that tax money to pay for programs that help the rest of the country. You do have noble and good people, billionaires like a Mark Cuban, who comes out and goes, yeah, you know what? She's going to raise taxes on me and it is going to cost me more money. But you know what? I will always be fine. I will never be hurting as long as I am alive in this country. So if it means raising my taxes so we can give the people in this country more, because I would never be able to make this kind of money in any other country. Well, some other countries like Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, but you have to be in certain positions to be able to do that. I'm talking about just as a capitalist and a free economic society, that you can only do that here in this country. And Mark Cuban is grateful to this country to be able to do that. And Mark Cuban is grateful enough to be able to give back to the United States and the people who live here who might not otherwise be as fortunate as he is. Doesn't take away from his hard work. He worked very hard, but a lot of people in these positions didn't really work all that hard. I promise you, Donald Trump did not work a day in his life. Not a day in his life. Everything that he's handed his entire life has been handed to him. Everything. And again, I've said this a million times. If you truly care to know the truth about Donald Trump, there are plenty of documentaries. There are plenty of books. Well, how do you know they're not lying? There are laws in this country. It's called libel laws. So you are not allowed to print. You are not allowed to write books. You're not allowed to write articles about somebody with zero facts or lies. You're not allowed to do it, because what happens, well, first of all, you can do it, but if you publish it, then you open yourself up to massive lawsuits. So newspapers like the New York Times, who put out, I believe it was like a 4,000 word essay on Donald Trump in, I think it was 2021, 2022, wrote this gigantic article about how Donald Trump had made his money and had swindled millions of dollars out of his family, out of other people, how he, there are articles about how he stole money, or basically suckered people out of their money, people who worked on his hotels, people who worked for his hotels. What an awful, terrible businessman he was, and just what an awful, terrible human being he was. And Donald Trump is the most litigious person on the planet. If there was something in any of these articles that was unfounded or untrue, he would have sued them in 2 seconds. And you know the reason why he can't sue the people who just wrote this book called Lucky Loser, which is like, I don't know, 500 pages of him being a terrible businessman and ripping people off, he can't sue them. You know why? Because they have the receipts. They have the proof. And his lawsuit would go nowhere, just like the 60 lawsuits that he tried to say that the election was stolen. Why are people not understanding that this guy's a lifelong con man and grifter, and he's playing you? He doesn't care about you. He doesn't. And he's making fools out of people who are wearing t-shirts, hats, flying flags, and making their entire personality about this person. And it's sad to see. And I've got people in my life whose entire personalities are based on this person. Makes me sad. It makes me really sad. And, that's why I truly hope that when he loses this election, that this whole movement of MAGA goes away. And it's going to take a long time. It's not going to be quick. But somehow, I hope the Republican Party is able to hit a reset button and say, we gave it our best shot. We tried to do everything we could to be a fascist, authoritarian type government, the kind that we wanted, the kind that is ruled by white Christianity. Gave it our best shot. The American people said no. So I don't know what our path is to do it anymore, because I don't know who the next Donald Trump is, because Donald Trump was the perfect empty vessel for them. He's an empty-headed idiot. So all they had to do was tell this loud-mouthed idiot who will say anything, didn't care what the ramifications were, that he would say anything, and he got enough people to get so psyched up about him that they bought the hats, the t-shirts, and bought into the fact that he was a good businessman, great president, great leader, even though he did nothing. Do they have that anymore? Who are they going to get to replace Donald Trump to be able to do that? I don't know who they have to do that. Ron DeSantis? Ron DeSantis, we already pointed out earlier in the show, he's a big pussy. Ron DeSantis put on, without question, the saddest and the worst presidential campaign I've ever seen. And you think he's going to come back from those ashes? No chance. He's got no chance. So I don't know who else you're going to be able to get to do it, but let's just hope that it goes away sooner than later so we can get back to a normalized country. Again, if another Republican wins the presidency of the United States, it's okay as long as it's a regular person who understands democracy, but just has a different opinion on how the country should be run. But if it's somebody who is a know-nothing, lifelong lying con man, who is a convicted felon and who is liable for sexual assault, you're telling me this is the guy that should be president of the United States, and not just president of the United States, but a person somebody worships, people who talk to me about God and Jesus. They're telling me I love God, I love Jesus, I love Trump. Doesn't add up. None of it makes sense. And I'm just hoping we get to a place in this country again where things start to make sense. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times to anybody out there watching this who thinks that I'm just all 100% pro-Democrat, liberal, and everything needs to be Democrat and liberal. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I believe that there is a strong place in this country for a real Republican Party that is an opposing side to a Democrat or liberal. I promise you, if the Democrats and liberals got so incredibly batshit crazy that they want to shut down the Constitution and start all over again and go based on a religion or go based on just one particular set of standards, I'd be out. And again, don't come at me if you're going to sit here and try to tell me that the Democrats are already doing that. Why? Because they don't give a shit about Pride Month showing up in Target, because they're not shooting up beer cans because some transgender person held it up and did a 30-second ad on her own channel about Bud Light. I mean, this is not the same thing. So you could sit there all day and try to hit me with that nonsense. I'm not buying into it, so don't waste your time. But anyway, I hope you didn't feel like you wasted your time watching this show. Jesus Christ, I went an hour and 45 minutes. All right, listen, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. We'll be back on Tuesday. Lana will be back. Oh, you know what? We might be doing a Monday night show. I've got a work function on Tuesday, so I won't be there on Tuesday. But the Mets, Sunday night, I need everybody that either doesn't give a shit or they love baseball. I need you, and you don't care about the Mets winning. I need good vibes. I need the Mets to win the World Series this year. I just need that to happen. We talked about yesterday was Mental Health Day. This will be huge for my mental health if the New York Mets can somehow win the World Series. So please keep an eye on that. Let's get the Mets into the World Series at least. We're going to go one game at a time. No idea who they're playing yet. Dodgers, Padres playing right now. So I'm going to go watch the end of that game to see who the Mets are going to be playing in the next round. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for checking out. Please please subscribe to the show. That really would mean a lot to me. And come back and join us next week. If you hit the notification bell, you will find out what night we will be back on next week, which I believe it's going to be Monday. So come back and join me then. Again, thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you next time.